All right, thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. Uh, and thank you very much, APPIH, for organizing these online panels. My name is Vahid Serajian, and I'm the CEO and founder of Geoscience. I'm going to be the panelist as well as the moderator for today's session. We decided to kickstart a series of online webinars called Startup Roundup. And the particular focus of these online panels will be on small businesses, how to grow your business, how to start a business. There are a lot of common questions that entrepreneurs and startup owners and the ones who want to start a business, there are a lot of common questions, and we're trying to tackle these problems and answer these questions. And this is going to be hopefully a weekly panel. And today I'm glad we have two more very knowledgeable panelists, Dr. Yasin Hajizadeh and Dr. Babak Shafei. I'm going to go through their bio in a second, so you know them a little better. Dr. Yasin Hajizadeh, he's the CTO of Maillance, and he's the founder and CEO of nowos, and he's an adjunct associate professor at University of Calgary. Maillance is focused on democratizing machine learning in the oil and gas industry, while nowos provides training and development planning services across different industries. Prior to these gigs, Yasin was a program product manager of machine learning and IoT at Microsoft, and he additionally spent 5 years in Schlumberger as a reservoir engineer and data scientist in the UK, Canada, and the US. Yasin holds a PhD in petroleum engineering from Heriot-Watt University. The other panelist is Dr. Babak Shafei. He's the founder and CEO of AquaNRG, an environmental and energy tech company headquartered in Houston, Texas. His specialties include product development, product management, computational science and engineering, reactive transport modeling, data science, cloud computing, and technical training. His company, AquaNRG, offers industry-leading data-driven and physics chemistry software platforms and hardware infrastructure for environmental and energy companies. Dr. Shafei holds a PhD from Georgia Institute of Technology. And finally, myself, my name is Vahid Serajian, and like I said, I'm CEO and founder of Geoscience. I established this company back in 2015 with the main focus of geomechanics and upstream oil and gas. And in addition to those, we are also serving data science community, and we have some active projects in that sector as well. So without further ado, I'd like to dive a little deeper to the questions. And we are trying to have an open discussion panel so that we just ask the questions, and the panelists are free to interrupt each other, to answer questions, and they're free to challenge each other as well. So the first question is about starting your own business. We're trying to look in the big scale. So is opening a new business for everyone? Which one is better, working for somebody else or doing your own business? So this is the question that many people ask, and we're trying to discuss this first. You want to start, Babak?
Oh, yes.
What is your idea?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for the invite. It's my pleasure to be in this panel. So, back to your question, starting your own business or working with someone else. Obviously, one of the biggest advantages of working with someone else, or especially for the biggest companies, is and it's more particularly very correct for this time is the stability. So one of the biggest reasons like people prefer to work for other companies again, especially for the big companies, is the security and the security that they have in terms of the benefits, or even some of the perks that's coming with the biggest companies in terms of training. So that can be a biggest reason that some people would like to work.
Pensions, 401k, I would
Exactly.
say, yeah.
So, but then on the other side, you starting your own business, there are advantages. So the biggest one for me personally, when I started the company, is the freedom. So the freedom of what you really passionate about working. So when you're working in the biggest big organization, or not necessarily it has to be a big organization, even medium-sized organizations, you are most of the time given very specific tasks, and you have to be always following very specific milestones or planning. But when you're starting your own company, you have that freedom that you can really follow your passion, and you can really add value based on your skills, based on your interests and passion. So for me, this is the biggest difference between working for someone else and starting your own company.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Actually, this is probably good for people with multitasking capabilities, I think, because if you have networking capabilities and socializing capabilities, or you think you can be active in several industries at the same time, this can be quite useful. But if you work in a corporate, you're specifically working on a particular project, so you don't have the freedom to jump from work to work or from project to project. Yasin, you want to add anything to the discussion?
Yeah, sure. So, well, thank you again, Vahid, for the kind introduction and the invite. It's super awesome to be here this evening and talk about these important topics. From my perspective, I'd say the best and the worst thing in terms of large companies is the politics. And I'd like to kind of expand on that. And basically, politics can be good because what you learn is, even before I joined Schlumberger, I spent about a year in computer modeling group, CMG, and then kind of moving from, at that time, CMG was about 200 people. Then I moved to Schlumberger, which was about 110,000 people, was to learn the process of decision-making and how the business is run in terms of how you run a 200-person company, how do you run 100,000-person company, that was a huge gain in terms of knowing those processes and the politics around it. This can also be bad because what happens is obviously because of these long decision-making process, a lot of good ideas may not get it to the finish line. That kind of ties back to what was mentioned previously, that you have more freedom if you start your company to go after those ideas and execute them. This is also well documented in management and innovation research and books. That large companies, what they do is that they take the capital they have and they spend it on the projects that they're going to give them high margins and high profits, because obviously they need to double or triple their revenues. But because they're a large company, that amount of revenue increase is huge. So they're probably not going to spend a lot of money on high-risk projects. Depends on the organization, but that's the general mentality. And therefore, that gives you an opportunity to go and start your own company and follow up on your dreams and build on those products or projects, which may not be necessarily possible if you're working for a large company.
Okay, so but let me back up a little bit on this question. So can you start your career path without necessarily joining a big corporate company at the beginning? So I think to my understanding, at the beginning, you have to go through a big corporate company, or you need to work for another corporate company, someone else, to gain the required experiences and then become independent. And this is, I think, kind of proven for years. So if somebody was wanted to be a baker, he would work as an assistant baker, and then after he learns bakery, then he opens up his own bakery. So this is telling me that probably, yeah, after a couple of years, let's say give or take 5 to 7 years after you work for somebody else, it's a good time to probably consider, but not before that. Do you agree with this?
Well, I mean, if you're asking the question that is it possible to start your company without going through those large companies, I'd say the answer is yes, you can.
Okay.
However, the probability of success, in my opinion, might be a bit lower than if you've spent a few years in these larger corporations. So is it possible? Yes. Is there any chance that you're going to be successful in your journey? Definitely yes. But I would say the probability of success will increase if you
becomes
few years in those companies. And it's not just about learning the processes and how they do business and do their transactions, but also you learn or you actually get a brand recognition. So working for large companies that they're on top of their game in the industry gives you that brand recognition that, hey, this guy is coming from this large company. So so that gives you a bit of extra edge in competing with others that you have experience.
Very good point. Very good point. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah,
if you want, I can add something here. I think I totally agree with Yasin too. So in my experience, if you want to succeed in the startup, there are 3 important W's, I would call it. So there's why, there's who, and there's when. So when you start, I would say again, it's not necessary to be part of a big company and then start your own business, a startup company. But as Yasin mentioned, so when you're working for like a few years for another company, basically you know what's the pain point of the customer. If you're, for example, in oil and gas, you're dealing with different clients, and if you can really explore what's the pain points of the clients, that's your why for your startup. And then after that, you move on to the who, and that's again what Yasin mentioned is the credibility of you. So because down the road, you're going to bring your clients, your investors going to look at you, and the first thing is who's the team, right? So if you come up with say, hey, I'm coming from with this background, that's a big credibility and big positive on who's starting this company. And then after that is when that's the different story, but this can help. But again, it's not necessarily true. I would say there's tons of examples that people didn't have real big corporation experience, but they started very successful businesses. And the only thing is, like you know your domain, you know the pain points, you know the why, and then you build a expert team, and then you will have the successful business.
Successful, yeah. Very good point. Just want to add one thing. So probably for a traditional type of business, so if you want to open up a, let's say, chocolate factory or something like very common that doesn't need necessarily a big technology or something new to the market. So probably you don't have to work for a chocolate maker maybe, but if you want to bring in something new to the market, So you have to have some kind of background from the market, and that demonstrates that, yeah, you are familiar with this game, and you have identified some issues, and now you're targeting that particular issue. So to me, the final answer is yes and no. So it depends on what you guys think. So you don't have to have prior corporate experience, but if you have, yeah, it's not bad to have it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there is, again, like there are classic examples, like like Facebook when he started, like Mark Zuckerberg, he never worked for a big corporation. Again, these are probably can be exceptional cases, but I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of these examples that not necessarily people who started.
Yeah, you can always find.
I myself never worked for a big corporation. The biggest company I worked was like 200 employees, so it's still considered a medium-sized business. So I myself never had a big corporation experience, so I think it should be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're moving on to the next question. So what kind of skill sets do you need before planning to open a new business? And we want to open up this talk in different aspects. What kind of personal skills, what kind of technical skills, and what kind of financial and administrative knowledge do you need to gain before stepping into this route? So we're trying to help those who decide to step in this way to take an educated decision. So definitely before making a life scale decision, you need to educate yourself and make sure you're doing it right. So what kind of skills? So I'd like to talk first with Yasin on this, and feel free to jump in any of these categories, like personal, technical, and financial. Especially, I would like you to focus on the data science part, maybe technical skills.
Sure. Out of these three, Vahid, what I think is, so let me just give you a bit of overview, and then I'll jump into the data science part. Out of these three, I think the easiest one is the financials and the admin skills, because they're not super complicated to figure out, right? There are a bunch of tax stuff, there are a bunch of admin stuff, invoicing, things like that. So, and then there's so many products in the market that they actually address these issues. So a lot of them are free. So I'm not super concerned about the aspect of like learning how to deal with the tax issues and invoicing and staffing and things like that. Now we go to the technical one, which I think is still easier versus the personal skills. And the technical one in the data science side is, first of all, it's always good to have a bit of knowledge from the other industries. So, so if you've ever worked in, say, tech industry or another industry that is not oil and gas, that will give you a bit of knowledge about other fields and how they deal with their own problems and what you can learn from those industries and bring it to your own space. So that's a bit of knowledge gained from other industries and other use cases and how they deal with their own problems. You obviously need a good foundation is obviously statistics. So a lot of statistics is important. Going to more recent versions of these machine learning algorithms. There's a lot of research and development happening around obviously deep learning and the different use cases that these can be applied to. So it's good to have a bit of knowledge about these methods.
Yeah, the question is here. Sorry to interrupt. So how much and how deep? So for example, if you want to dive into, say, machine learning or deep learning or AI or any kind of cutting edge technology, there is literally no end to it. So some people who I know, and we had this discussion in a previous APPIH panel, and I also mentioned it there. So some people, they have a cutting edge idea, very great idea, but they think that they have to do everything themselves. So on technical skills, so he thinks that he has to go learn Python and then web development and then server, blah, 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 until he implements his idea. But to my understanding, as long as he knows the basics, okay, he can hire someone to do it much faster and probably much efficient, in a much efficient way. So now the question is, how deep and how much do we need to, you know, increase our knowledge? So Babak, do you have a comment to add on this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in my opinion, when you start, I think it's very common among all the entrepreneurs. You start a business, especially in the beginning, you're short in funding capital. We always say you wear different hats during the day. You're accounting in the morning, you're a lawyer afternoon, and then you're a web, programmer at night. So, and that's because of, you know, that's how it works. You know, in the first years, there's no funding, there's no capital, you're bootstrapping. So you need to, this is kind of survival mode, and basically you need to learn some of the basics. You need to know the basics of accounting. You need to know basics of my background is environmental engineering, but then if you want to develop a cloud-based application, I have to know the basics of DevOps, or I have to know what is AWS, what is Microsoft Azure, so that even I have funding, and we will be starting hiring, so I can hire the right person. So in order to have the product, a successful product. But the second important thing about startups is, I think when you're a founder, you start in the company, most important, you're a leader. The leader's responsibility is communication. So you're you're a communicator. You don't have to be an expert in everything. You have to bring the right people. And
that's the personal skills that you have to have.
Exactly. And you have to, and that goes back to your question. You mentioned personal, financial, technical. I think personal development, in my opinion, is the most important one, because that's how you basically bring the people, you lead the people, and you communicate the goal, the vision of the company, and then that's how you will end up in successful business and successful product and go to the market.
That's very interesting. And I'd like to add one more point myself. And I think this is a key in success for small businesses. And that's the sales capabilities, selling the idea, selling your resume, selling your network. So being a good seller is not just about small business. It works everywhere. Okay, so let me give you one interesting example. So one of my good friends and I, and he's a top-notch engineer in one of the biggest tech companies in the world. So we were thinking about developing this cutting-edge device, and we were talking about technical aspects of it and so on and so on. And we happened to talk to a mutual friend, and that guy gave me probably the biggest shock of my life. He said, okay, imagine that you have already developed this tool that you were thinking about. Imagine you already got it. So how do you want to sell this? And I just got paralyzed, because I had no plans whatsoever. I was just thinking about the circuit technical part of it, but I had never thought about, okay, how I'm going to sell this product. So he said, okay, rather than thinking about developing a top-notch thing and going down the road 1 year, and you're gonna realize that you're not a good salesperson, then try to sell a small thing on Amazon or eBay and see if you're successful. Then step up to one more sophisticated level. So my suggestion to everyone and it's not limited to small businesses, is that just try to develop your sales capabilities, and you will be successful not only in a small business, but also in selling your ideas or in promoting your thoughts or selling a product in any aspect of your life.
So I
Sure.
I wanted to finish what I was trying to point out was you mentioned ideas. I think ideas are a dime a dozen, right? So what counts is the execution of that idea. And that kind of goes back to what you and Babak mentioned, that in terms of execution, the technical knowledge is kind of important, but the most important skill is the personal set of skills, and then it's sales, and then the management that you mentioned, but also being a good product manager. So one of the skills that I learned in my time at Microsoft was how to be a good product or program manager, and being able to find a product that market needs. So instead of going and basically learning a tool set, which here we're talking about data science, it can be any other thing that you want to learn, is to go first find the problem that people are willing to spend money, give their money to you for you to solve that issue. And once you find that problem, then you go and learn a skill set or a set of tools, or go learn cloud development, you learn DevOps to address that problem. So you have to start with the problem and then find the solution for it. And you go through the set of questions that a product manager asks. It's like, why I want to build this product, what I want to build, what is the product, how I want to build, and then the last question is when, what is the timing. A lot of products are super awesome. It's a great product, but the timing for the market is not right. If you talked about machine learning 20 years ago in the petroleum engineering domain, there were a couple of people that they were working, but they were not a widely used product because people were not believing in it. So the timing was not right. Now I think the timing is kind of getting right. We have to find the right problems, but the timing is also important. And when you build a product, you need to iterate on that for a few times in order to find what is called in product management a product market fit. Your first version may not be the best one, so you have to give it out and measure the market feedback, measure the market's pulse, and then iterate on that until you get to a product that has a good product market fit. So that was my two cents about
that was very interesting. All right, so we're moving on to the next question. So, So about staying in oil and gas or leaving. So, and I'm putting this in a better way. If somebody already has a secure job in oil and gas industry, good for him, because he's gonna stay because the salary is good probably, and he's gonna continue working in oil and gas industry. But imagine this question is for those who have probably lost their job. Okay, so do you recommend staying in the oil and gas industry, or do you recommend moving on or going to another industry? So Babak.
Well, I would say again, it goes back, and it will be different from person to person, and it really goes, yeah. So it's going to be what kind of if you're working in oil and gas industry, obviously you've been exposed to different disciplines. So as if you're like petroleum engineer, you've been working with geoscientists, petrophysicists, data scientists, your tech guys. So you've been exposed, and this is it really depends on how you have been growing in that company and how many or how, let's say, what kind of skills you have gained at Aqua during your tenure in that oil and gas company. So if you think that you have the right idea and there is a product market, and again, like working back to the first question, if you've been working for one of these companies, you've been exposed to different problems of real world problems of the client. So you know what is the real pain point of the customers out there. So that's the really the product market fit that we can really capitalize and we can really work on. So if you think you have the right skills and you have the right idea, I would say yes, I would capitalize on that. But not necessarily go to different business, different verticals. If it is still oil and gas, I would start a startup and then we'll focus on that, because that's how my domain expertise is, and it needs less, I would say, investment.
Jumping, yeah.
Exactly. But again, there are people also, you know, like if you're, you have really good knowledge, for example, of data science, so you can really apply to different verticals. But then if that other vertical is your domain expert, do you know that industry very well, then are you able to know the real questions in that vertical, or you need a co-founder, for example? That would, I would suggest in that case, you will need a co-founder. So if you want to, for example, do data-driven, let's say real estate, right? So do you know real estate domain? If you don't know, so you will find a co-founder.
Yeah, you know just the data-driven part of it.
Exactly.
You don't know the real estate part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so that's what I would, you know, what my strategy would be for that.
Okay, excellent. Yasin?
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more with what's been said. I think if you have a core expertise, it's better to continue in that core expertise. You can learn data science. If you want to be data science and a large company, and then like you were a data scientist for Exxon or Schlumberger, and you have 5 years of experience, then you can probably go and become a data scientist in another industry, depending on if that industry is something that you like to work in or not. But the chances that you can go and build your own company in or startup in a different industry and become successful if you don't have the core expertise of that industry is pretty slim. So the large corporations, if you want to be a data scientist in different companies, then by all means. But starting your own business in a different vertical I think is risky.
That's very interesting point, because I think, yeah, having domain knowledge is a key. And I would like to focus on one particular point, and I think many of the recently laid off professionals might get into that emotional roller coaster. So, which is, you look at Mr. X or Miss Y, and you say, "Oh my God, she's in real estate business and she's making $500,000 a year," or that guy is in bakery business and he's making $300,000 a year. So, and you would think that, yeah, now that she makes money or he makes money, that guy sells air mattress and he makes $1 million a year. So let me go in that way. So not necessarily a success story of somebody else would apply to you. So yeah, he or she might have had a lot of ups and downs, and you don't know the details. So gaining a domain knowledge and knowing exactly the pathway from start to end, I think is the key in becoming successful in any business. And I think we can recommend to people that if you don't have a second expertise or hobby, let's call expertise / hobby, try to get one. Yeah. So because if you're just a one-dimensional carpenter, you just know carpentry and nothing else. So if tomorrow China floods the market with a lot of similar items that you used to make, then you're broke. there's no option B. You're going to be paralyzed. So this is a suggestion that try to open up a plan B or second hobby, so that if something happened to plan A, then you can move on to your second hobby.
Hey,
So,
can I add very
sure,
quick,
sure.
now that we are in the topic of the domain expertise, so it just reminded me, it's a quick kind of a story, because so when we talk about domain expertise, they always say in the startup fields that you have to be obsessed with the problem that you are solving. Really, you have to have obsession. And if you cannot, you have to really 100% focus. And again, this comes a lot when you go to investors. If you and we had in we ourselves made a mistake in the beginning around where when we were pitching to the investors, say, hey, this is our product. It has application in oil and gas. It has application in let's say nuclear waste management, and then it has mining, and it has health care. And you would think, oh, this is the great thing.
People
and,
get confused.
Yeah, like you have, you have a product which solves all the problems, but actually it was a negative thing. All the investors, what they wanted is, what is your expertise and what is your focus? And that's, and there, again, I forgot that person's name. So this guy is called as the father of the furniture in the United States. So he was obsessed with the furniture. The story was like, he would go to the restaurants and he would measure. He had a tape, basically measure every seats that he was sitting, the chairs, the tables, and that's how he became. It was his expertise. He was obsessed with solving one problem, and that the problem was and the solution was that I'm gonna make the best furniture in the world. And that's his skill, that he made the most successful business.
That's interesting. That's interesting story. Very good. Now, so which sectors, speaking of all of these, and assuming that somebody has lost his job in oil and gas, and assuming that that person is trying to move on outside oil and gas. So we just talked about, assuming oil and gas or not oil and gas, and now we're going deeper into not oil and gas, outside oil and gas. So which sections, which type of jobs do you think are more interesting at the current market conditions? So do you have any particular examples or names or expertise? Yasin, do you want to start this?
Sure. I've been active in the data science space for quite a number of years. So my perspective is only limited to this type of skill set and how you can apply it to other domains. It's no secret that but during the past couple of years, it's become a super hot area in almost all of the domains, right? So if you have a set of skills that you become a data scientist with them, then that opens the door to go and become a data scientist in almost any vertical. Especially if you have experience in being a data scientist in the oil and gas industry. My experience tells me that, this is very anecdotal, but it tells me that it's a bit difficult when you learn this type of domain from courses, from the certificates that are available, without having that expertise in corporate environment. You go and apply to other domains, those chances are not good. But if you have already experience in the oil and gas domain, then that opens the doors for you to go and become a data scientist in another vertical. You can go to mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, some of these industries that are close to oil and gas. But also you can become a data scientist in one of these tech companies, right? So I know a lot of people that they moved from the oil and gas to Google, to Microsoft, to Amazon, and they're not data scientists there. A lot of these companies, what they do is that they have at least a partial focus on the oil and gas industry. So if you move to these companies, then it gives you an opportunity to be involved in the data science projects that these companies are working with their customers. So that is another positive.
Yeah,
That you can
that's right.
utilize.
Yeah, that's right. But for example, can you or does a data scientist have to know the details of what that data in oil and gas mean? So my personal answer to that question is probably no. So all that data scientist needs to probably know is, okay, take this, and this is called gamma ray. So he doesn't have to know what is the basis of this, or what it reads actually, or whatever.
Mhm.
So all he has to do is just transferring those data and doing the task that you're asking him to do. The reason that I'm opening this channel is I myself, for a data science related project, I was looking for the same exact type of person with deep oil and gas background, plus, for example, some programming background. And then I realized that maybe we have just a few of them, or like handful of them, which are very, very good in both. And they are already employed in some of the highest paying companies. So they're already booked. And the rest of the people, they're trying to learn how to code and program. But instead, if you just go and hire a data scientist and tell him just the basics, or whatever he needs just to satisfactorily do his job, that probably suffices. So he doesn't have to know the very detailed information about it.
Mhm.
So
in general, I disagree with you. And the reason is that you actually need, in general, so like emphasis on in general, is that you need domain knowledge in order to formulate the problem for a data scientist to work on. So if you're a data scientist that you have domain expertise, that formulation of the problem is
that's a plus, yeah.
The most important part in doing a data science project. So you need that domain expertise. Now, if you are working on a small project that needs some data science expertise, you might be able to get away with hiring a part-time data scientist and yourself formulating that issue and problem in the data science language, and for that person to solve it. But if you're working on a larger scale project that needs multiple data scientists, and then they're collaborating with software engineers, they're trying to, for example, build the product, then there are additional issues. It's not just about the experimentation phase of the machine learning that you tune a model and then you get kind of like good results and then say, I'm done. You move to the inferencing and the productionizing that model, and that is where you run into issues. That if your model does not have a certain features or precautions, then your model will not perform well when you deploy it to the production. So generally, I would say domain expertise is super important in running machine learning projects. But I think case by case, you might be able to get away without having that domain expertise.
Okay, great. So thanks for focusing on data science part. Babak, do you have more general, what I'm trying to also, in addition to what Yasin also explained, I'd like to give some real world examples, okay? Because many people, they kind of expect us to give them some ideas, okay? To be more specific, or to show them probably some ways. Do you have some particular examples in mind, that which industries or what they should be looking in their future career.
Yes. Just a quick comment on the domain expertise and data science, and then I'll answer your question,
Sure.
Vahid. So I really believe that domain expertise is important. And the reason is if you look at the evolution of the products that are coming from oil and gas, we used to have, let's say, reservoir simulators, and we always had physics-based simulators, and that needs domain expertise. And then for some reason, because of the computational limitations, in terms of hardware, or because they were slow, we moved, and because of all the explosion of the data we got, so we moved immediately to data-driven, everything data-driven. But then look what's happening right now. Now we are back to physics-informed, data-driven, because you cannot just derive everything from data. You need to explain, and you need to know the fundamentals. I'm a big believer in the fundamentals. And I have a really good quote. Like one of the CEOs I was attending in the big computing in San Francisco was telling, said, and it's a really nice quote. And he was saying, we are taking our smart people with really fundamental domain expertise, and we are turning them to data scientists in Facebook to basically ads there to make a profit for the marketing ad or campaigns on Facebook. And that is true. So for me, data scientist itself, it's a skill. And it's a very important skill, especially in this area that we have generated data in the last 2 years equal to human history, right? So that's an important skill. But again, it's a skill. You have fundamentals. You know the physics, you know mathematics, you know chemistry, you know geoscience, and then you apply data science on top of that, and then that's how you really make innovations. That's my opinion. And back to your question, in general, I would say anything that you want to move in this environment, especially after COVID-19 era. Everything has to be digital and online. You know, if you're if you want to move to, I don't know, restaurant business, you cannot survive, and we saw that you cannot be surviving in this area without presence of online. And you saw, like, if you're, for example, if you're your restaurant owner, you have to at least you have to be partnered with Uber Eats or
have some kind of footprint on online environment.
Exactly, at least have a website.
Yeah, exactly. You can't survive on just the traditional, because people want to find you on Google, on Facebook, blah blah. They want to read your reviews, yellow page, whatever.
Exactly.
And they want, that makes sense. So any particular like ideas about, for example, and we have so far talked about the high-tech computer-based simulation, very high-end technologies, and not necessarily everybody in oil and gas industry works in that level. So we have thousands of people that lost their jobs in oil and gas industry, which work in the field. They work in operations, and they're very, very skillful, handy people who can do any kind of operational jobs, but they're not good with computers or cutting edge technologies or data science. But they have to move on, and they need to make a living. So I would like to also talk about that for a few seconds. So I think that type of expertise is also very important. But on the other hand, the aspect is, if you can't find a job in oil and gas industry, then you need to move on to some other industries that acknowledge your expertise. Something like welding, I don't know, being a machinist, or a technician in other industries. So not necessarily all the success route passes through, for example, high-end technologies. So if you're a good mechanic, if you're a good welder, if you're a good machinist, probably you can even make more money than you would make in oil and gas. You can make money in auto industry, auto repair industry, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. Okay, so
before we move on,
yeah, sure.
just a quick thing. So it's I would say, you know, this is a very big question that you it's not just oil and gas. It's a big
Right.
Very broad, some revolutions are happening. And all this is because of digitalization, because of automation, because robots, and it's hitting because of let's say even, you know, new energies, renewables. It's just in the energy space is a big transformation happening right now, and that's a big question. So, but this is not, and that my point here is it's not just focus on technical people, like you said, like drillers in oil and gas.
Yeah.
So I was listening to this interview by Sam Altman. So he's the CEO of OpenAI. So, you know, Elon Musk and Sam Altman, they have this OpenAI. So basically, their AI algorithms, they are writing new Python algorithms. So basically, in few years, there's no need even for data scientists, because you just writing it's a Python script. You make a comment there, I'm gonna, you know, do this like this function, you know, and because it's AI based, so it's gonna
automatically generate another.
So no one is secure right now, and the only answer for this is you gotta just grow. You know, you're gonna you know, educate yourself, and you're gonna move with whatever. And it's a fast-paced environment, and you have to just you know, keep up with all this revolution and this transformation happening in all.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, Facebook. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Facebook, or maybe it was Tesla. They were developing this language that automatically, you know, by deep learning can write its own language. And after a couple of probably thousands of iterations, they realized that the software itself, it starts to innovate some codes which are not understandable to human, but it perfectly does the job. But you as a human don't even understand what that is. So they unplug the project, you know, before the Terminator and RoboCop comes over. So they unplug the project. So let's quickly move on, because we're kind of running out of time. So which type of businesses do you not recommend? So what do you think, like, is not a good idea, especially at the current market condition? Because imagine somebody is looking at different scenarios, different possibilities for opening a new business, and then what would you you know, tell to someone that, hey, don't get close to this business? Yasin, do you want to start on this?
Yeah, I think doing that market research is probably one of the first things you should do when you are getting into running a business. And depending on the amount of runway you have, if you only have a runway for 6 months or 1 year, and I want to start a business around machine learning for drilling engineering, right? That is not probably a smart choice, because nobody's drilling right now. Okay, so if you go and look at the rig count data, what you see that the rig count is plunging, and then probably it will at some point go up again. But if you only have money left to do a business and you can only be self-paid for 1 year, I wouldn't go and do a drilling kind of startup or consulting firm. Then another area that I don't think is good is to be a general contractor for the machine learning kind of side. I mean, again, I'm talking about machine learning because that's
Yeah.
have the most experience. Is that you want to go and build this general framework that does everything. That is not a good idea. You have to, again, find a good problem to solve and do your market research, your user studies, and make sure that people are willing to pay you for solving this issue. You don't necessarily need to build the product itself or build the solution itself. But obviously, you can borrow ideas about prototyping, or there's another term called pretotyping, which is kind of like similar to prototyping, but it's even before you build a prototype. You can just go and run some experiments.
If it works. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to build a phone, you don't even need to build the prototype for it. What you can do is that you can just take a piece of brick and then just put it in your pocket and walk around, and then see if you how often you're pulling it up of your pocket, how often you're using it, is the weight okay, what do you think about it. So these are some of the things you can do even before building the prototype of your solution. And go and do your user study and gain some data, and then make a data-informed decision. So always, my recommendation is to make your decisions, especially if it's around opening a new business, is around data, and make an informed decision.
Okay, cool. And I'd like to add one comment here. So to be more specific, if I were to open a new business myself, and like I said, I want to go into a little more real world examples, I wouldn't probably go to some community or big crowd-based service business. For example, what like business catering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there is no gathering, there's no professional meetings anymore, you know, until further, like next couple months at least, right? So if you want to open a catering business, this is not probably a good idea. Or some type of service, like companies that provide services to offices, like janitorial services, I don't know, office supply, some utilities, cleaning, providing coffee, and bunch of other, anything that serves a big community or a big group of people, let alone like be family gatherings or business type. That's probably not a good idea.
So right, I think that's a good point. I wanted to mention a real-world example that crowding can actually be a good business opportunity. The company that I founded, Nowos, what currently focuses is on providing the training and development planning for the machine learning and data science and technologies that are focused around Industry 4.0. And the main drive behind it was the crowding of the market in terms of the providers of the training solutions. So if you're not going to want to learn data science, there are probably more than 100 universities and organizations that they provide anything from a 2-year program to a 2-week certification program. And if you're a decision maker for your organization and you want to train your team of 20 people, you're kind of confused about this crowding, right? Because you go and search data science training, and then you get 10,000 results. So the idea of Nowos is to catalog all of these service providers, go and do interviews with who have completed those training programs, and then rate them, categorize them, catalog them, and then use this as a business opportunity. So I've spent about 2 years to build that catalog, and now I'm using it to selectively offer the good programs out of this 10,000 training programs that are available. So if you really look deep, sometimes the crowding of a market can be a business opportunity. I think it's kind of like Yelp is a similar idea.
Yeah.
It was born out of the crowding and in the restaurant industry and the need of people to choose high quality restaurants, because most of us, when we're going to a new place, the first thing we check is its rating. So Nowos' idea is kind of like similar to
that.
Yelp, but for data science, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at a crowded market, you would see a bunch of business opportunities.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Very nice talks. We are almost on time on the Q&A ourselves, but some very interesting questions have been asked. So I'd like to discuss about these a little bit. I'll start with Babak, and Mr. Samui did me a favor and selected a few good questions, and I think that there could be more questions than this, but he kind of cherry-picked it for me. So I'm going to ask this from Babak, because I know he's been very successful in getting funding from government in SBIR. The question is about this. Do you recommend working with grant institutes such as SBIR or STTR, or directly finding customer, or working with angels or venture capitalists? So he or she is asking about three different possibilities: SBIR or STTR, directly finding customer, or working with angel investors or venture capitalists.
Well, I will add also rich family members. So that's, well, actually in the startup, it's these are the levels of this. You know, like you start with bootstrapping, your own saving, and the first fundraising is really friends and family. That's in the startup is that level it goes, and then it goes to the other sources. So really, the answer to answer for this is it really is depending on your business, and I would say you have to secure funding based on your business situation. For example, in our case, which was government grants, we were actually actively pitching to the angel investors. So, but we, in parallel, we were also writing proposals for the SBIR grants. So I would say, you know, in the first year, especially, you are again in a survival mode. As the one quote from the LinkedIn co-founder, and he was saying, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you're in the free fall, and in the free fall, you have to build a parachute to save your life. So that's how it works. In the first year, you're gonna find a customer to buy your lunch, and then at least live to work on your idea before like hiring anyone. So this is I would say I would go for all different resources. The great thing about grants obviously is in the beginning, when you don't have enough product, you don't have customers, paid customers, then and you don't have revenue, you're pre-revenue basically. If you bring angel investors, of course you're going to lose a lot of equity. So that's the is the disadvantage of that. But on the other hand, grants are, there's no equity. So, but they come with a lot of limitations. So the first biggest limitation is it's only for R&D. So government is giving SBIR grant to you to build your product. So it's only R&D, and they have this different pool they call indirect costs. It's basically your, if you have office, you pay your office rent. If you have telephone, you pay internet, telephone, utilities. These are, they call it allowable costs. So you have these costs there, but then you cannot, then they have lots of unallowable costs, including marketing and sales, which again, we talked here that, if you have a product you cannot sell, you cannot market it, then it's not a non-profit. You have a business, it's not a non-profit. You have to sell it, and you have to sell it, have it revenue, so you can go to the investor, say, hey, I've got this product,
Oh, yeah.
which is a revenue. So again, there are so many things. Especially, I would recommend diversify. You have to have customers, you have to have grants, you have to have investors. So, and investors, I would bring when I'm a little bit mature. I have a product, I have a few customers, and I have a good team, so I can have a good position when you're negotiating for your startup and you're raising for next series.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so the next question is, how did you manage the financial needs of the business and life in first few years? So let me answer to this question, because I personally had the same situation. So that's pretty tough. So actually, doing the financing your ideas, providing the financial sources for your ideas, and at the same time making a living could be very stressful. So the first probably solution is squeezing every possible dollar and not spending for unnecessarily stuff. And everybody has a full list of what he spends and what he can save. So probably if you're not using that whatever account, Amazon Prime account or Netflix account or Showtime account for a long time, just forget about it. The big chunk of the budget usually goes toward the rent or the mortgage. So if you can do anything about it, some unnecessary insurances. So you have to cut down on those. So I'm just letting the audience to decide with themselves what they can cut from the budget. The second thing is probably you have to work on some other projects to be able to provide the funding for the developing idea. So obviously for the first few years, it's not going to make any money for you, your idea. So you have to get the budget from some other projects and then inject it back to this idea or this new project. So yeah, it's challenging, but I think one of the main things that we have to learn is how to squeeze the budget and try to save every dollar possible. So the next question, and I go with Yasin, how can we validate our idea has potential in the market?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically I mentioned a couple of ways you can do is the general term for that is market research, right? So again, building a prototype or prototype of your proposed solution or product is one of the first things you can do. The other thing that comes to my mind is instead of directly validating it, you can invalidate other ideas. And by that, what I mean is a very good point to go and build a product is to identify your competitors, if you have any, and then go and see what is wrong with those products. So, for example,
or what you can improve on that. There might not be necessarily anything wrong, but you can improve it, or there's some untouched part of it that you can accomplish. Yeah.
So for example, if you're talking about machine learning, right, and you want to do a product, a lot of these companies, especially big ones, so for example, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, all of them, they have a documentation page or they have a product page. And if the comment section of that is available, usually you see people that they're coming and complaining about a certain feature of that product. Or if you go to forums such as like Stack Overflow or other computer science related forums, what you see that someone is coming and complaining about a certain feature in Google machine learning or in Amazon's machine learning, and that complaint is a market pain point, right? So if you're looking for pain points to solve. Either you can come up with this super novel idea that you're sure that it is novel, there is no competition, and then go and do a market research for it. Or you can go and see what other people are complaining about in public forums and comment section of those products.
That's a very interesting, idea.
And then kind of go and find a solution to solve those problems.
That's very interesting. Babak, one question for you. What are your thoughts on protecting intellectual property? Filing and maintaining patents is not cheap. What is your best recommendation on protecting your innovation while you have limited resources?
Well, again, it depends on, first of all, it depends on type of the product. So if you're, for example, software, it's copyright. If you're, if different types of product, then you get like utility or there are different types of intellectual property. So first you have to understand where you are. The second part, in terms of the cost, yes, it is expensive. Lawyers are very expensive. So I would say in terms of patent, if you think patent is the way to do is the patent pending. So that's the way most of the startups do. So patent pending protects you for 1 year. And that's
you
usually
mean a provisional patent.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Provisional patent, which is patent, and then and that would protect you, give you a one year, and then in 1 year, basically, you have hopefully funding and you have resources, so you can really apply for your patent. So that's the way. But I would say the most important step is understanding which mechanism is going to protect you, and what category are you. For example, like because we are in software, it's a very fuzzy area. So software can be applicable in the copyright because codes that you are writing, it's like the books, because you're typing, and that's the copyright. But then you go to the interface, that's design. So that's a different type of intellectual property, and there's different mechanism that you have to apply to protect that. So I would recommend first understand that, and then for example.
A very good point, Babak. So I was actually talking about a year and a half to 2 years ago with a very well-known attorney. He was a very famous lawyer. Mm-hmm. And back then he was telling me that part of these software codes are not patentable anymore.
Yes.
It used to be patentable, and then it discontinued because, for example, if I'm writing a loop, for example, do this job from 1 to 25, so Mr. A and Miss B could do the same thing as well. So this is not patentable. So this should not prevent somebody else to do this, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. Do you guys have? Yeah, Yasin, go ahead.
Right, just a quick point on that. As my experience tells me that it's super difficult to patent the software. You can probably do a workflow or a similar thing, but even that is difficult and costly to do because you're going to run into a lot of examinations, and then the reply to those will incur additional costs. My recommendation here is that if you can, keep it as a trade secret. Protection of IP is not only in terms of patent application. Another form of IP protection is trade secret. And if you can keep it as a trade secret, I especially for someone who doesn't want to spend a lot of money on patents, I would keep it as a trade secret. Some famous products such as Coca-Cola, they've been protected by a trade secret for I think more than 100 years. I'm not sure when they started producing Coca-Cola, but it is a trade secret that is kept under a vault in their headquarters. And if you can keep it as a trade secret, they've kept it for a long time. Then that is the best option to go. It involves zero cost.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So I'm gonna go with the last question. We were supposed to be 1 hour panel, and I think our discussions are very interesting. at least to myself. I don't know how about the panelists. I mean, and the audience. Probably they're sleeping now. But the last question is, and this is an interesting one. For starting own business, can we start with well-established ideas with a lot of competitors, or the idea should be original and innovative?
I get started. There's so many, I would say, theories, and there are also so many facts there. So one of the Peter Thiel is one of the biggest investors, VCs. He was one of the biggest investors, for example, at in Facebook and other corporations. His idea is like your idea has to be, when you enter a space, you have to create a new space. So basically, it has to be revolutionary. You have no competition. Right. And on the other hand, there's like other theory, like saying, oh, if you starting a idea, working on an idea, if you're small and it's a little bit improvement for existing products, and there is a big competitor there, you're basically a small lab for that big company. So right. That big company is gonna observe you, and it's gonna see, oh, and they're not spending anything on this idea, and they see it's a very good idea, but they're gonna wait. And they're gonna wait until see if you're gonna be successful. And if you're successful, then either they're gonna copy you much better, or they're gonna buy you in the best case scenario. But if not, they're gonna copy you. And the biggest example, I would say, Snapchat. Snapchat, these guys came up with all these features, and Facebook wanted to buy them. They didn't buy, and then of course Facebook went to buy $20 billion WhatsApp. But then they copied all these stories. So Snapchat, important feature about these stories. But now look at it. Facebook has these stories, Instagram has stories, WhatsApp has these stories. Yeah. And they couldn't, and they had actually, back to our last question, they had a patent on it. But Snapchat, they didn't patent it very well, so they cannot protect it now. So they could easily sue Facebook because of that feature, but they cannot because they patented wrong, so they cannot sue Facebook or Instagram. Yeah. Well, Facebook, Instagram is owned by Facebook because of that feature.
That's very interesting. Yeah. So, but overall, also, there's nothing necessarily wrong with you don't always have to be a revolutionizing business or someone that comes with completely new idea, right? So. Actually, today I was talking with a very smart and good friend of mine in Nigeria, and he lives in Nigeria, and he was telling that my wife, and he's a very well-known engineer. He has workshops that in fact, they do a lot of shipyard, like welding, big type of oil and gas, like hardware projects. He was telling that his wife was making some kind of Nigerian snack. They're calling it chin chin, and that's like a small, like this size pieces of bread, and it's pretty simple stuff. And he was saying that probably in 1 or 2 years down the road, her business will beat my business, even though it's not something revolutionary. This has been in Nigeria probably for years or centuries, but just because she is making it more fresh, better than the competitors, she like grew her business, and her business keeps growing. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing something that has been in the market, but as long as you can make it better, add some features or listen to your customers and bring a better product to the market, you'll win. So not necessarily you produce something revolutionary. Sometimes you bring in the same product with better quality. Mm-hmm. So yeah, very interesting talk. I think I personally enjoyed our talk very much. So I don't know about the audience. Hopefully they enjoyed it too. And I apologize for passing over the time. Even actually, Babak was telling me that try to keep the the panel to 40 minutes max, and we're right now at an hour and 40 minutes. So you see what I'm talking about. So sometimes discussions, take time. But I personally enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much, Babak. Thank you very much, Yasin, for your very, very interesting ideas and comments. And thank you very much, Mr. Samoui. I think he should be there, and he helped me a lot by forwarding me some of these questions and picking the questions and sending it to me. I appreciate. So, Mr. Samoui, if you want to close the comments and say goodbye, please do so.
Thank you so much. Once again, thank you for all the panelists for very insightful points that they provided for today's session. Just for information, a recorded version of today's panel will be available at the APPIH social networks by end of today. Thank you again and have a great time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.